The anime begins with our protagonist, Fuyatsuki, whom we can see heading to her new job at a sales company. She is a cool girl lacking in emotions, always showing a bored expression. She is not even impressed when she sees a boy with frozen legs, something very unusual to see in the middle of spring. This boy is our male protagonist named Himuro, who is descended from a snow woman. Himuro has the ability to create ice, but only in situations of extreme anxiety and nervousness, as in this case, since his legs froze due to his nerves about starting his new job. Despite not showing surprise or interest, Fuyatsuki decides to help the boy, trying to melt the ice on his legs with some hot tea. As this doesn't work, she changes her plan and serves him a cup of tea to drink, thinking that this way the boy will calm his nerves. A cup of tea always helps to calm nerves, so once the ice on Himuro's legs breaks, each can go on their way. Fuyatsuki finds herself thinking about Himuro as she has never met such a cold and interesting boy before, leading her to realize that he is her ideal type of guy. On the other hand, the boy also finds himself thinking about her, admiring how kind she was to help him. Later, when Himuro arrives at the office of his new job, he realizes that Fuyatsuki is there. As it turns out, she will be working alongside him in the same company. The boy gets so nervous just thinking about this, which causes him to create a small snowstorm that catches the attention of Koori, a girl descended from a fox spirit, and Sejima, a simple human. As Fuyatsuki and Himuro are the new employees at the company, they formally introduce themselves to the others, who in turn do the same to establish a good working relationship. While working, Himuro gets so stressed that he starts generating his typical snowstorms without realizing it, but he calms down once Fuyatsuki points it out to him. In the process, she notices that he has a photo of some flowers on his desk, which leads her to ask if he likes flowers. He responds that not only does he like flowers, but he loves them, but unfortunately, he can't get close to them, as whenever he tries to touch them, they freeze. This touches the girl's heart, so the next day she gives Himuro a straw blanket so he can touch the flowers without freezing them. This gift fills the boy's heart with love, causing him to create another snowstorm. On a new day, Himuro faces a new problem. He loves cats so much that whenever he gets close to them, he generates a snowstorm that scares them away, making him sad as he has never been able to pet a cat. Just like the previous day, this touches Fuyatsuki's heart, so she decides to give him the whiskers of her cat named Anibro, so he can feel the presence of a cat in his daily life. Once again, this kind gesture from the girl fills Himuro's heart with love, and he can't help but express it by involuntarily creating a snowstorm. After receiving these gifts from Fuyatsuki, the boy decides to give her a special limited-time chocolate the next day, which is very difficult to find. She appreciates the gesture and thanks him, causing him to get excited and generate his typical snowstorm. On another day at the company, Sejima gets a cold but can't leave work as he has many things to do. Being the good person he is, Himuro offers to help with his tasks, something that Fuyatsuki notices. She approaches the boy to tell him that he's a good coworker for offering to help Sejima, to which he responds that it's nothing, he's just being neutral. However, when she leaves, he feels happy about her kind words, causing him to create little snowmen. A month later, the company manager informs the new employees that their welcome dinner will be held on Okoa Island. Everyone celebrates this news except for Himuro, who gets nervous just hearing the name of that island, as he has a feeling that something bad will happen while he is there. As a result of this, Himuro's legs freeze and he becomes completely paralyzed. Fuyatsuki, seeing him in that state, approaches him to ask why he's so nervous. He responds that just thinking about the beach, the sun, and the sea of the island makes him feel this way. Ironically, the boy is interested in hearing the sound of the waves on the beach, but he's unsure about attending the dinner on the island. The next day, Fuyatsuki gives him a surf drum, an object that simulates the sound of waves. She gives him this gift so that he can relax during this time and feel secure about traveling to Okoa Island. He's happy about Fuyatsuki's gift and becomes so obsessed with it that he spends the following days training his mind to stay calm until the day of the trip. On the day of the trip, we see the boy calm as he travels with his friends. Upon arriving on the island and staying at a hotel, Himuro takes some time to watch the waves on the beach, accompanied by Fuyatsuki. In a conversation they have, he reveals that thanks to the surf drum she gave him, he can now watch the waves without causing a snowstorm, so he's very grateful to her. Fuyatsuki, on her part, is pleased by this and pulls out a travel guide that she planned herself since she had previously visited the island for study reasons. However, since she came for other reasons this time, she planned this travel guide to share activities with Himuro. Upon hearing this, the boy's heart is touched, knowing that Fuyatsuki thought of him while planning her travel guide, which of course causes him to generate a snowstorm. Additionally, she shows him photos of her cat, explaining that she always takes pictures of it because she loves it so much. This captivates Himuro's heart once again, and as usual, he generates a snowstorm but quickly calms his emotions to dispel it. On another day, the boy generates his typical snowstorms again because Fuyatsuki gave him a cute keychain. The good thing about this is that the island tourists were impressed and delighted to see snow falling in the middle of spring. The next morning, Himuro hears the news and gets nervous when he hears that today's weather will be very hot. As a result, the boy escapes from the hotel to find a shelter where he can be safe from the heat. When Fuotsuki finds him, she notices that the boy looks like a small child, prompting her to ask what happened. He explains that whenever he feels very hot, his body starts to melt, which causes him to gradually become younger. To prevent this, Anibro needs something cold, and fortunately for him, Fuotsuki sets out to get it. She gets an ice cream from the hotel shop, which seems to help, but what ultimately brings him back to normal are the gentle strokes in his hair from Fuotsuki. The next day, after an important work meeting, the manager celebrates the good work of his new employees and also officially welcomes them to the company with a big dinner. Afterward, the employees return to the hotel, but our protagonists decide to do something else before going back. Fuotsuki, Anibro, Sejima, and Koori head to a mountain where they enjoy the start of some fireworks, a beautiful sight that Fuotsuki can't help but want to capture as a memory, so she takes a photo to cherish the moment. She admires the photo for a moment and then realizes that there's a picture of Anibro in her gallery, looking like a child, which she seems to have accidentally taken while he was melting. The photo warms her heart, and since the boy has no idea about it, she decides to keep the picture a secret to admire it whenever she can. On a new workday, the manager informs the new employees that he will be taking drastic measures as he plans to change the areas they are working in. This news affects Anibro, who fears being separated from Fuotsuki if he is moved to a different area. As a result, the boy takes one of the cat whiskers given to him by Fuotsuki, recalling that she had told him these whiskers bring luck and fortune. He exclaims to the sky to stay in the same area as Fuotsuki. His wish is granted because when Anibro checks the company email, he is delighted to see Fuotsuki's name next to his. This not only means they will be in the same area, but it also means they will be working side by side. Anibro is thrilled to have Fuotsuki working by his side, and this excitement generates the usual snowstorms. Putting that aside, the boy cannot be more grateful to life and to Fuotsuki, so he plans to give her something to repay everything she has done for him. The next day, Anibro discovers the perfect gift, a romantic dinner. The problem is that just thinking about inviting her to dinner makes him nervous, but this time he gets so nervous that his entire body freezes. Fortunately, with some warm words from Fuotsuki, he calms down and breaks the ice. After this, the boy overcomes his nerves and decides to invite her, to which she agrees without much hesitation. With the most difficult part done, the boy now takes care of reserving a spot at the restaurant while the girl puts on makeup to look even prettier. Once they are at the restaurant, the two enjoy the delicious food. However, both Anibro and Fuotsuki get lost in their thoughts, so they do not communicate well during the dinner. To make matters worse, an urgent call from the company interrupts the moment, forcing the girl to step out for a brief period to answer it. While the girl takes the call, the boy watches her happily. When the waiter notices this happiness, he asks the boy if his smile is because he is on a date with the girl, to which Anibro confidently replies yes. She, upon hearing the word date, asks the boy if the dinner they are having is indeed a date. Anibro freezes, and knowing he has made a mistake, he faints. The next day at work, Koori asks Fuotsuki what she feels for Anibro, as it is hard for her to believe they have nothing going on since she always sees them together. The girl replies that while she is very close to the boy and they get along very well, she does not feel anything for him, mainly because she does not know him fully. She does not know his hobbies and much less has his phone number. However, she is willing to try to get to know him more deeply and to do activities together, as she feels great appreciation and affection for him. Anibro, who had been listening to everything, blushes as he feels the same way as she does, and to start getting to know each other better and have more contact, he shares his phone number with her. The next morning, while Anibro is working very hard, he notices that the wallpaper on Fuotsuki's phone is from the time the fireworks were present on Okoa Island. This makes him happy, as it makes him glad to know that the girl he likes has a picture on her phone where he appears. What the boy does not know is that, in addition to that photo, Fuotsuki has as her main wallpaper a picture of him as a child, a photo of which Anibro has no idea of its existence and which the girl does not plan to let him see. On a new day, a new employee appears at the company. His name is Koori, Anibro's childhood friend. This boy is a descendant of a phoenix, which is why he seems so radiant and happy to be working at the company. One reason he's excited to work there is because he's working alongside Anibro. The other is because his office mate is a girl named Danshi, whom he seems to be interested in. Later, our protagonists accidentally bump into each other, and as a result, Fuotsuki drops all the reports she was carrying. Anibro helps her pick them up, and among the reports, he finds a flyer for a children's movie called Little George the Cat 2. This flyer belongs to Fuotsuki, who plans to see this movie because she really liked the first one. With this in mind, the boy takes the initiative and decides to invite her to the cinema, although he needs to watch the first part of the film to better understand the story of the second part. On the day of the movie outing, our protagonists are very excited. While Anibro delights in seeing Fuotsuki smile, she can't help but cry as she watches little George the cat reunites with his mother after a long time. After the movie ends, they go for a cup of coffee to continue spending time together. Meanwhile, at the same cinema, Sejima and Koori are watching a movie titled Rice. And although they enjoy the movie, Seijima feels uncomfortable watching it with a coworker he barely met the day before. The next day at the company, the protagonists stay late working because they have to wait for an important call. While waiting, they find themselves not knowing what to do. As a result, Fuyatsuki suggests to Himuro that they play a game called Word Chain, where you say a word whose first syllable begins with the last syllable of the previous word. The protagonists start the game and have a lot of fun, even if their faces don't show it. After a while, Fuyatsuki receives the important call she was waiting for, and when she answers, Himuro thinks it's the end of the game. However, she tells him that the call mentioned she needs to stay a little longer. This was a miracle, as it allowed them to continue sharing activities together, one of which is drawing. She tries to draw him and tries to draw her, and this simple game makes him so happy that he doesn't hesitate to share it with his friend Koori through a text message. Koori, in turn, congratulates him on having had a nice time with the girl he likes. Returning to the protagonists, they suddenly receive the important call they have been waiting for, and after that, they can go home. Himuro doesn't want to leave empty-handed, so he bravely invites Fuyatsuki to eat something on the way home. She gives him a positive answer and says she'll wait for him outside the company. This makes the boy very excited, especially because of everything he accomplished that day, getting closer to Fuyatsuki and having a great time with her. A few days later, an announcement about some Little George the cat plates catches Himuro's attention. The announcement is a contest that involves filling a bingo card with stickers found in bags of bread from the company that owns the Little George the Cat series. Himuro can't help but think of Fuyatsuki when he sees the announcement. He sets to work trying to collect them. On the other hand, Koori has some problems. Whenever she eats spicy food, her fox ears and tail become visible, which embarrasses her because it attracts stares from boys, making her ashamed of herself. Fortunately for her, Seijima reassures her that she doesn't need to be embarrassed about it because, to him, everything about her is perfect. As he says this, he can't help but blush, showing that he has feelings for her. On a new day, Koori is extremely stressed, as she not only messed up her makeup, but also had a bad experience on the train on the way to work. As a result, she arrived at work tired and unmotivated. Noticing her state, Fuyatsuki lifts her spirits by giving her some sweets with a surprise inside. Koori relaxes while eating the sweets and feels as happy as a child when she discovers that the surprise is a pin of an animal. This was the beginning of an obsession with this sweet, as in the following days she buys several of these sweets to collect all the different pins. However, to her dismay, she only gets repeated pins. She gives up, but mysteriously, each day she finds pins she didn't have, which lifts her spirits, although it also makes her curious about who is leaving the pins on her desk. When she gets the last pin on her own, she feels satisfied to have completed the collection. The downside is that she also feels the fun is over, as she'll never know who was giving her the pins she didn't have. But then Seijima appears to give her the last pin of the collection, revealing that he was the one who gave her the pins. After this, she asks him why he was giving her the pins, to which he simply replies that he did it out of love. Hearing this, Koori blushes even more, and before she can say anything to Seijima, he leaves, leaving her unable to express herself. Meanwhile, Himuro is worried because the deadline for the contest to win the Little George the Cat plates is approaching, and he still hasn't filled his bingo card. But then a miracle happens. Fuyatsuki gives him the stickers she had been collecting, without intending to participate in the contest. Thanks to these stickers, Himuro completes his bingo card and wins the plates, which he gifts to Fuyatsuki with much love. Another issue arises in the office, this time involving Koori. He feels undervalued by Otonashi, who treats him like a servant. Despite this, he follows her orders because he's in love with her. In a misunderstanding, he confessed to her that he's in love with her, which caused her to treat him differently. Due to this misunderstanding, Koori begs our protagonist to help him get Otonashi to treat him the way she did before. Ironically, the protagonists don't help him with this. Instead, they offer him encouraging words to help him value himself as a person, something he quickly puts into practice thanks to his strong Phoenix character. Despite this, Koori can't help but remember his past with Otonashi. He fell in love with her when he was working at a cafe. When he found out she worked at a company, he didn't hesitate to leave his job at the cafe to work with her at the company, where despite being like oil and water, they worked very well together, achieving several important sales. Koori fell in love not only with Otonashi's strong character, but also with her sensitive side. After recalling all of this, Koori asks Fuyatsuki for advice on how to express his feelings to Otonashi. She tells him to try saying, "I love you" in a subtle way. To practice this advice, Koori says, "I love you" to Fuyatsuki. Although this is just practice, Himuro can't help but feel very jealous, to the point that he unintentionally freezes Koori. However, Koori quickly defrosts and runs away, knowing that his friend is in love with Fuyatsuki. The next day, Fuyatsuki notices that Himuro has trouble maintaining eye contact, so she asks him why. He replies that he has always had this problem, as making eye contact with people makes him nervous. To address this issue, she suggests they stare into each other's eyes. Ironically, the young man manages to overcome his nerves and keeps his gaze on Fuyatsuki, while she becomes so nervous and flushed that she looks away, showing that he has that effect on her. After this, Himuro leaves, and once he's away from Fuyatsuki, he lets out all of his nerves, Setting this aside, the company manager, without any apparent reason, gives him tickets to an amusement park called Catland, to which he eagerly invites Fugatsuki as a date. But before this, he needs to learn about Catland so he can know everything necessary and enjoy the park. Luckily for him, Koori, who has been to the park before, knows all about it, so she provides him with all the necessary information. The downside is that she gets so excited talking about the park that she ends up stressing Himuro out, causing him to leave. To make matters worse, Fugatsuki sees them talking about the park, so she decides to give her ticket to the girl, which makes the young man develop a bit of resentment toward her. Koori feels guilty, so she calls Sejima for support, which inadvertently leads Fugatsuki to decide that all four of them will go to the park, making Himuro upset with both Koori and Sejima. On this special day, the four happily enter the park, seeing all the people enjoying themselves. On one side, Fugatsuki and Himuro see a lost girl, so they decide to help her find her parents, resulting in them leaving Koori and Sejima behind. Though this worked out well for them as they took the time to flirt a bit. Returning to our protagonists, after helping the girl find her parents, they are left not knowing what to do as they can't find their friends anywhere. In response, Himuro remembers that he brought his itinerary, so he suggests to Fugatsuki that they visit the attraction called Cat Cruise. Thus, the protagonists visit this attraction, which consists of a relaxing boat ride with adorable views of various cats and funny poses. After this, they visit a couple more attractions until they reach their final attraction, the Ferris wheel. Here, Fugatsuki tells Himuro that she had a great time today, especially because she spent it with him. He in turn is very happy with these words, and due to this great emotion, he can't help but create a big snowstorm, which makes the people at the park enjoy watching the snow fall. After this, the protagonists visit a gift shop as they plan to buy something to take home. Fugatsuki suggests to Himuro that they buy two similar mugs so they can share the same memory of this great day. The downside is that the girl realizes it's a bad idea, as if they bring those mugs to the company, the employees might think they are a couple. This creates tension between the two, and with nothing to lose, Himuro decides to try to confess his feelings for her. Unfortunately for him, Koori and Sejima ruin this attempt and take them both to the park's closing festival. The four watch the festival with great enthusiasm as it reminds them of the time they saw the fireworks on Okoa Island, and to commemorate this beautiful moment, Koori takes a photo. At the end of the festival, the four return home completely exhausted, especially Himuro, who ends up falling asleep on Fugatsuki's shoulder. Later, we see Fugatsuki arranging her cat mug she bought at Catland and her Kitty George plate before going to sleep. Himuro does the same at his home, showing us that this duo is connected even when they are apart. This is reinforced the next day when Himuro buys some Halloween drinks for Fugatsuki, without her knowing. Ironically, she does the same, so neither of them knows what to do with the leftover drinks. In the end, they decide to give them to their co-workers, and Fugatsuki dedicates one especially to the company president. She's a very enthusiastic woman, so much so that she organizes a Halloween party and expects her employees to participate in it. They are not in the mood to join the contest, but this changes when the president tells them that there will be a costume contest at the party with a prize of 100,000 yen in cash for the winner. With this motivation, they start thinking about their costumes that same night. Fugatsuki suggests a very generic pumpkin costume, but to our surprise, both Koori and Sejima agree. The only one who isn't on board with this is Himuro, as he can't bear the thought of seeing Fugatsuki's face covered by a pumpkin. Nonetheless, he decides to help her find the costume. Unfortunately for both of them, the pumpkin costume is sold out everywhere, so they end up deciding on vampire costumes. The next day, after a long work day, the costume party begins. The downside is that Fugatsuki has to stay late at work, so Himuro, Sejima, and Koori go ahead and get changed. On the way, they run into Koori, who is completely devastated because he forgot the costume he was supposed to wear with Otonashi at home. The group tries to cheer him up by suggesting costume ideas, but none convince him. That's why Himuro texts Fugatsuki for help, and she doesn't hesitate to suggest the perfect costume for Koori. The costume Fugatsuki suggests is mummies, as it's a costume that can be quickly made with simple toilet paper. So the group uses the company's toilet paper to dress Koori and Otonashi as mummies, and afterwards, Himuro sends Fugatsuki a photo showing her the final result. Shortly after, the group changes and attends the Halloween party, waiting for Fugatsuki to arrive. At that moment, Himuro receives a message from her saying she's arrived and asking him to meet her in the bathroom. He and Koori go to the bathroom to see Fugatsuki, and gets a big scare when he sees that she has blood in her mouth. This scare makes his body freeze with fear, as he fears Fugatsuki might be hurt. Fortunately, she clarifies that the blood is fake, which relieves him. Afterwards, he walks away very embarrassed by the situation, and Fugatsuki can't help but look at him with a lot of love, as she not only noticed that he was worried about her, but also that he looks more handsome in the vampire costume. As a result of this whole situation, neither of them can look each other in the eyes for the rest of the party. Putting this problem aside, the company president announces the results of the costume contest winners. Our protagonists come in second place and win a prize of about 30,000 yen. Koori and Otonashi take first place and win the grand prize of 100,000 yen. Because of this, the winners thank Fuyatsuki for her mummy costume idea. But since a simple thank you is not enough, they decide to invite the whole group to a fancy dinner in the coming days. At the end of the party, our protagonists still haven't spoken to each other, so they are ready to change and go home. However, since Fuyatsuki didn't spend much time at the party, she asks Himuro if they can go home in their costumes. He agrees without hesitation, and this is how the two of them go home together, dressed as vampires. Christmas is approaching and Himuro decides to buy a gift for Fuyatsuki, intending to give it to her when the opportunity arises. Meanwhile, Koori wins a trip to a ski resort to enjoy skiing and spend Christmas there. She invites Fuyatsuki, who accepts the invitation but mentions that she doesn't know how to ski. Fortunately, this won't be a problem as Koori also decides to invite Himuro to teach Fuyatsuki how to ski, something he can't refuse. Koori also invites Sajima, so the four of them can have a nice group outing and spend Christmas together. At the ski resort, Himuro can't help but feel nervous, knowing he has to teach Fuyatsuki to ski. However, he tries to set aside his feelings for her and focuses on teaching her how to ski. She tries to keep up with him but only ends up embarrassing herself in front of him. Ironically, when Koori teaches her how to ski, Fuyatsuki learns more from her than from Himuro, so in the end he feels embarrassed, although at least he's glad that Fuyatsuki learned to ski. After this, the group heads to the resort shop where they are served by a girl with gray hair very similar to Himuro's. This girl's name is Yukimin, and upon seeing Himuro, she calls him brother. As it turns out, she is his younger sister. Because of this, he is obliged to introduce her to his friends. Yukimin tells them that she is a popular influencer on social media, though she's a bit embarrassed about her most watched content, which is a video of her eating a lot of food in front of the camera. Fuyatsuki, noticing the girl's embarrassment, tells her that she finds that kind of content cute. Upon hearing this, Yukimin doesn't hesitate to approach Fuyatsuki to thank her for her sincerity. She also talks to her about Himuro, mentioning that descendants of a Yuki-onna, snow woman, tend to create snowstorms when they're nervous or anxious. She asks if her brother has caused any trouble at work, to which Fuyatsuki responds that he hasn't. Hearing this, Yukimin looks at Fuyatsuki with admiration and can't help but feel so excited that she hugs her and says, "I love you." At nightfall, the group leaves the shop and goes to a cabin to celebrate Christmas properly, with delicious takoyaki and drinks. After eating a lot of takoyaki and almost finishing all the drinks, Koori mentions that there are no more drinks left. So Fuyatsuki offers to go buy more, and Himuro jumps into the conversation, letting her know that he'll accompany her. Thus, the two of them go to get the drinks, but they stop when they see a big and beautiful Christmas tree. In this moment, Himuro decides to give Fuyatsuki the gift he had bought, which turns out to be a blanket. He tells her that he bought the blanket so she can protect herself from the snowstorms he causes, as he doesn't want her to get sick because of them. Fuyatsuki thanks him for the gift but says something very important. She tells him that his snowstorms don't make her feel cold because every time she's with him, she feels warmth in her heart, and thanks to this, she can withstand the cold of his storms. This makes him blush because in a few words, Fuyatsuki told him she has feelings for him. The next morning, the group travels home after spending Christmas at the ski resort. Fuyatsuki talks to Himuro, letting him know that the previous day was wonderful because she got to know two new sides of him: the protective Himuro with his younger sister and Himuro who taught her how to ski. Hearing these words, the young man's heart softens, causing him to get nervous and create a snowstorm inside the transportation. Meanwhile, Yukimin is making videos for the internet when she receives a message from her brother saying, "Well done." She doesn't understand what he's referring to, and remembering how he treated her in front of his friends today, she decides not to respond. On a new workday, the president informs all the employees that today will be the last day of work, so she asks them to organize their desks before the end of the day. After the workday ends, our protagonists tidy up their desks as instructed, and then they leave together. On the way, Himuro starts to feel cold in his hands, which is ironic since he shouldn't feel cold. Fuyatsuki offers to warm his hands by touching them, which results in them holding hands very tenderly. Of course, both of them blush and get nervous, so after a few seconds, they let go of each other's hands and continue on their way home. At Himuro's house, he feels bored and unsure of what to do, thinking that he won't see Fuyatsuki until the next year when they return to work. Then an idea comes to him to celebrate New Year's with his friends via video call. Thanks to this idea, he feels happier at home, not only because he's celebrating with Sajima and Koori, but also with Fuyatsuki, who also joined the call. Shortly after, Koori and Otonashi join, so they can now celebrate the new year with a toast and by drinking adult beverages. After drinking a lot and wishing each other a happy new year, Koori suggests that they celebrate the new year by visiting the Inari temple the next day, to which everyone agrees quickly, as they need to end the video call to celebrate the new year with their families. The last ones left are our protagonists, who wish each other a happy new year before ending the video call. The next day, the group of friends meets outside the Inari temple while waiting for the last person in the group to arrive, who is none other than Fuyatsuki. When she arrives, she wishes everyone a very happy new year, and they do the same. Himuro, for his part, is unable to wish her a happy new year because he's in shock seeing Fuyatsuki in a kimono for the first time. Setting this aside, when he calms down, the group of friends enters the temple, but each couple goes their separate ways. Kotori and Otanashi enjoy the food at the place, while Sejima is undecided about which lucky charm to choose. Lastly, our protagonists simply stroll around the area. At one point, someone accidentally pushes Fuyutsuki, causing her to fall. In response, Imuro quickly acts to stop her fall, resulting in them ending up in a very tender position. After this, they hold hands to prevent anyone else from pushing either of them. Unfortunately, this sweet moment doesn't last long as their friends arrive just in time to plan a group activity. Fortunately, this activity is interrupted by Koori, who reveals that she works at the temple since her family lives there. She notices that Himuro and Fuyutsuki are very close, almost like a couple, which makes her feel a bit down because she wishes for something like that. Luck seems to hear her lament as Sejima approaches her to give her a lucky charm. She thanks him shyly for this kind gesture, as she never thought luck could be so swift. After this, our protagonists separate from the group and go to the temple to pray to the gods for good fortune this year. Without hesitation, Himuro asks the gods for luck and love, as he hopes that this year he and Fuyutsuki will get closer and have more romantic outings like today. In a new year at the company, while Himuro is working, he can't help but look at Fuyutsuki, as she's using the blanket he gave her on Christmas Eve. This makes him nervous, especially because she notices him looking at her, so she thanks him for the blanket. When the girl is called by Koori, the young man thinks about giving her a birthday present, as it's coming up soon. The gift he has in mind is a pair of earrings he bought the same night he got the blanket. He's unsure about giving her these earrings, as it would signify a commitment to her, but his friends, the little snowmen, encourage him to go ahead and give her the earrings. Later, when Otanashi arrives at the company, she tells Fuyutsuki and Koori that the trains have stopped running due to heavy rain. Because of this, they can't go home. This is when Koori suggests spending the night at a hotel near the company, something the other girls agree to. On the boys' side, Kotori decides to invite Himuro and Sejima to his house, which is very close to the company. They agree as they can't go home for obvious reasons either. So after work, the boys go to Kotori's house to spend the night playing video games, while the girls stay at a hotel. There, Otanashi comes up with the idea of talking about boys and starts teasing Koori, saying she saw her very close to Sejima the other day and thought they were dating. In response, Koori insists over and over that she and the guy are just friends and only went out as friends, though Otanashi obviously doesn't believe her. That's why Koori decides to return the favor by teasing her about Kotori. For Otanashi, that guy is nothing more than a coworker, so she doesn't pay much attention to Komori's teasing. Meanwhile, Fuyutsuki is in the background, just watching her friends argue about boys. They try to get her to join the conversation, but Fuyutsuki tells them that she's never had a romantic outing with a guy. This surprises her friends as they know Fuyutsuki has had romantic outings with a guy, who is none other than Himuro. When Fuyutsuki receives a message from the young man, her expressions change, something her friends notice, and this is how they realize that Fuyutsuki is in love with Himuro. After this, the group of girls decides to toast to this great night and take a photo. Fuyutsuki sends this photo to Himuro, and when he sees it, his heart melts so much that he creates a snowstorm inside Kotori's house. The next day at work, Himuro overhears a conversation between Koori and Fuyutsuki, where the latter tells her friend that she won't be able to go out with her today because it's her birthday, and she plans to spend it with her parents. Upon hearing this, the young man becomes anxious, knowing he won't be able to give her the gift. That's why he spends the entire day trying to find the right moment to talk to her and give her the gift. But unfortunately, Fuyutsuki was very much in demand by everyone today. As the workday is about to end, Himuro finally gets to talk to her and simply asks if they can walk home together. As the two walk home, Himuro becomes very nervous due to his uncertainty about whether or not to give Fuyutsuki the gift. This causes a large explosion of ice in the area, which makes him look bad in front of Fuyutsuki. Ironically, the girl liked how the place looked thanks to Himuro's ice, so she thanks him for this beautiful birthday gift. He's happy about this but tells her that wasn't his gift, as his real gift is the earrings he is about to give her. Once he gives her the earrings, the girl looks at them and says they are very similar to him, as the earrings are shaped like snowflakes, the same shape she sees him from her point of view. After putting on the earrings, she asks Himuro how they look on her, to which he, blushing, replies that they look very nice on her. Hours later, the girl celebrates her birthday with her parents, still wearing the earrings Himuro bought for her, while he's at home admiring the stars and thinking about how beautiful Fuyutsuki looked with the earrings. On a new workday, Koori overhears a private conversation between Sejima and Himuro, where Himuro mentions to his friend that after work he plans to invite someone to live in his house. This makes Koori go wild, as she thinks that someone is her Fuyutsuki. She goes to tell Fuyutsuki about this, but to Koori's surprise, Fuyutsuki had no idea. When Himuro finds out that Koori told Fuyutsuki about what he plans to do after work, he feels compelled to reveal that this someone is not a person but an animal, specifically a cat. The young man plans to adopt this cat as it is a stray cat that lives in his neighborhood. Although the cat initially ignored him, it showed affection and trust, making Himuro so fond of it that he decided to take it home. However, before that, he needs to devise a plan to catch the cat, as it won't go to his house on its own. Luckily for him, Fuyatsuki offers to help. Himuro plans to lure the cat with a feather and then trap it in a cage. However, he can't carry out this plan because, to his great surprise, Fuyatsuki manages to attract the cat simply by extending her finger. And since the cat quickly grew fond of her, it let itself be caught without resistance. Once they have the cat, Himuro is determined to take it home, but then Fuyatsuki sees a flyer for a lost cat, which turns out to be the one she's holding. Because of this, Himuro and Fuyatsuki decide to return the cat to its rightful owner and head home empty-handed. As a result, Himuro feels sad, to the point where he creates icicles. Fortunately for him, Fuyatsuki comforts him by inviting him to her house the next day so he can enjoy being around a cat, in this case, her cat Mayamero. Since it's the first time the young man will be going to Fuyatsuki's house, he wakes up as early as possible to buy some food to share with her. Once he arrives at her apartment and rings the doorbell, she comes out with Mayamero. He greets them both, especially the little kitten, thanking him as his whiskers have kept him company all this time. After this, the young man finally enters the girl's house, and as soon as he steps in, his body feels a strange relief and sense of peace, causing him to accidentally create ice. This ice is different. It's not a snowstorm, it's something called diamond powder, an ice so tiny that it creates a beautiful view in the air. A bit later, while Mayamero plays with a box, our protagonists prepare the dishes to eat the food the young man brought. They accidentally bump hands, causing both to become nervous and unsure of what to do. Himuro apologizes to Fuyatsuki, as he was the one who accidentally hit her hand. She in turn tells him not to worry, as it was she who didn't move her hand in time. This makes Himuro very nervous and Fuyatsuki too, creating a tense romantic climax between them, which is interrupted by the sudden arrival of Yukimin, who was invited by Fuyatsuki. Unfortunately, Himuro will have to put up with her for the rest of the day, feeling very devastated at not being able to be alone with Fuyatsuki. Luckily, she tells him that if he wishes, she can go to his house, to which he obviously gives an affirmative response. The next day at the company, Koori and Seijima start interrogating Himuro about what happened the previous night, as they notice he is very nervous. The young man repeatedly tells them that nothing strange happened, but since they don't believe him, they keep insisting with a question. When Fuyatsuki arrives, she sees the whole scene and can't help but feel happy, as she likes that her friends get along well with each other. A few days pass, and our protagonists are sent on a business trip by the company's boss. On the way to their destination, they begin to talk about all the wonderful moments they have shared together, which makes Fuyatsuki happy, and Himuro too, although he can't help but contain his excitement, causing him to create his typical snowstorms. Despite the trip being for business purposes, the protagonists plan to have a lovely dinner outside the hotel where they will be staying. With this in mind, Himuro puts a lot of effort into the business meetings, giving his best in each one. As a result, he ends up very stressed and tired to the point where he struggles to stand. But that's not the worst of it. Shortly after, he falls ill with a fever due to the stress, and with the heat from the fever, he turns into a child. When Fuyatsuki sees him, she tells him that she will help him return to his original state by fetching ice to cool his body, just as she did when they went to Okoa Island. However, Himuro tells her that in this case, ice won't work as the heat in his body is internal and not external, so he will have to wait until his fever subsides to return to his normal self. Because of this, Fuyatsuki decides to cancel the dinner they had planned and return to the hotel. She doesn't want to leave Himuro alone while he's sick, so she invites him to spend the night in her room. He initially refuses, not wanting Fuyatsuki to take responsibility for him as if he were a child, but he eventually accepts her invitation. Thus, the young man tries to sleep in Fuyatsuki's bed while she was out to buy some things for him. When she returns to her room, Fuyatsuki sees that Himuro is sound asleep, so to avoid waking him, she sets aside what she bought and goes to sleep on the sofa. In the middle of the night, Himuro wakes up and is relieved to see that he's back to his original state. The only thing worrying him is seeing Fuyatsuki sleeping on the sofa. He tries to wake her to tell her she can return to her bed, but ends up getting too close to her. When he realizes this, he decides not to wake her so as not to disturb her. The next day, the protagonists have a big breakfast together, as after that, they'll have to leave the hotel and return to the company. After this great trip, they walk towards their workplace and pass by the place where they first met. Here, Himuro thanks Fuyatsuki for helping him thaw that day. In response, she simply gazes at him, which makes him blush as he can't believe how much his life has changed since that day. Not only did he meet Fuyatsuki, but he also met Koori, Seijima, and Otonashi, and reunited with his best friend Kotori. But beyond meeting and reconnecting with people, he also had wonderful and unique experiences with them in various places like Okoa Island, Catland, and even the Inari Shrine. After reminiscing about all the moments spent with her friends, Fuyatsuki does the same, but doesn't just keep the thoughts to herself. She tells Himuro that thanks to him, she was able to change her way of being, as she used to be a cold and expressionless girl, but all the experiences she had with him changed that. Hearing this, the young man blushes and says that he also changed thanks to her, as he used to be unable to approach cats or the beach because his strong emotions would cause snowstorms. But that changed when she helped him in various ways, and now he can control his emotions. In response, Fuyutsuki also blushes, and to crown this beautiful moment, she shares a sweet with him before continuing their walk to the company. Once they arrive, their colleagues welcome them back with great joy, to which they respond with a cool but tender thanks for the gesture.